Michael David McKee sat in his Chicago apartment one December evening, staring at the wall as the last light of day drained out of the city. The radiator clicked and hissed, but the room still felt cold. Outside, traffic moved in dull waves, headlights passing like indifferent eyes. Inside, nothing moved at all. The apartment smelled faintly of old coffee and dust. The television was off. He hadn't turned it on in days. His phone lay face up on the table beside him. No notifications and no missed calls. No messages that mattered. He checked it anyway, unlocking the screen for the third time in 10 minutes, as if the device might suddenly surprise him. It didn't. The silence pressed in, thick and personal, as though the room itself was judging him. He hadn't spoken to Monique in years. Not since the divorce papers arrived in 2017, clean and official, ending something that had already been dead long before. He still remembered the envelope, the way his name looked printed so neatly, as if the decision had been simple. She didn't linger. She just left, and the space she vacated never really filled again.
She moved on fast.
Too fast in his mind. That detail knotted him more than he liked to admit. Within a year, she had met someone else, Spencer Teep. A dentist. Stable. Respectable. The kind of man people trusted around their families. McKee imagined the calm smile he had seen in photos, the straight posture, the easy way he seemed to occupy space. Everything McKee felt he had lost. Spencer lived in Columbus, Ohio in Wineland Park, a neighborhood McKee had researched more than once, pretending it was just idle curiosity. Monique and Spencer married, bought a house, and soon after had 2 children, a boy and a girl. McKee knew their approximate ages, the layout of the street, even where Spencer's dental practice was located. He absorbed these facts in fragments, social media posts, property records, old mutual contacts who didn't realize how carefully he listened. He told himself he didn't care. He said it out loud sometimes, alone in the apartment, just to hear it spoken. But the anger stayed. It sat heavy in his chest like a stone, dull but constant. Some days it was manageable, almost quiet. Other days it flared without warning, triggered by something small, a laughing couple on the train, a child's voice echoing in a store, a memory that refused to stay buried. Weeks earlier, the restlessness had become unbearable. On impulse disguised as planning, McKee drove to Columbus. The trip felt unreal, like stepping into a dream he knew he shouldn't be having. The highway stretched endlessly, mile markers ticking by as his thoughts spiraled. He told himself he just needed to see it, to confirm something. What that something was, he couldn't quite define. He parked blocks away from the Teep home, choosing a spot that wouldn't stand out. The engine clicked softly as it cooled. He sat there longer than necessary, watching the street through the windshield, heart beating a little too fast. Then he got out and walked. Dusk settled over the neighborhood, softening edges and muting colors. Porch lights flicked on one by one. McKee kept his hands in his pockets and his head down, moving at an unhurried pace. He passed houses that all looked vaguely similar, brick fronts, small yards, traces of children's lives scattered everywhere. Bikes leaned against fences. Chalk drawings faded on the sidewalks. When he reached their street, he slowed. He didn't cross right away. He watched from the corner first, pretending to check his phone. Then he saw the house. Lights glowed warmly through the windows. Spencer arrived carrying grocery bags, moving with the ease of someone who belonged exactly where he was. The front door opened, and Monique appeared laughing, one of the children clinging to her leg. The sound didn't reach McKee, but he could imagine it clearly. The scene was ordinary, and that was what made it unbearable. McKee stood across the street, half hidden by shadow, feeling like an outsider peering into a life that should have been his. He noted everything without realizing he was doing it. The angle of the driveway, the way the porch light cast long shadows, the side alley that ran between the house and the neighbor's fence. He noticed the back gate too, slightly crooked, as if it didn't quite latch the way it should. Time passed strangely. He wasn't sure how long he stood there. Minutes, maybe more. His breath fogged faintly in the cold air. His hands remained buried in his pockets, fingers curled tight. No one noticed him. No one looked his way. Eventually, the door closed. The lights shifted as the family moved inside. The house became just another quiet structure on the block. McKee felt something hollow open inside him, wide and echoing. He turned and walked back the way he had come, careful not to rush. Each step felt heavier than the last. When he reached his car, he sat for a moment before starting the engine, staring straight ahead, jaw clenched. The drive back to Illinois was long and silent. The radio stayed off. His thoughts looped endlessly, replaying the image of the house, the laughter he hadn't heard but could still feel. He thought about how easy it had been to get there, how little effort it would take to return. The realization settled in his mind, quiet but persistent, and followed him all the way back to Chicago. When he finally reached his apartment, the silence was waiting for him again. On December 29, 2025, McKee made a small but deliberate choice. He left his phone at work, placing it face down on his desk as if he might return for it later. When a coworker asked if he was feeling all right, he said he felt sick, that he needed rest. His voice sounded normal enough.
Tired, maybe.
No one questioned him. At home, he moved with quiet purpose. He packed a small bag, choosing dark clothing that wouldn't draw attention, gloves to keep his hands clean, and the handgun he had purchased months earlier and never used. He paused for a moment before closing the bag, resting his hand on the zipper as if weighing the finality of it. Then he shut it and set it by the door. Just after midnight, he got into his car. The city was mostly asleep, the streets empty and washed in yellow streetlight. As he pulled onto the highway and headed east, the world narrowed to the road ahead. He kept his speed steady and careful, never pushing it. The engine hummed softly. No music played. He wanted no distractions. His thoughts repeated themselves in a tight loop. Every mile reinforced the story, he told himself. This wasn't impulse, he insisted. This was justice. Monique had belonged to him once. She had walked away and she had taken his dignity with her. Spencer had stepped into the life that should never have been offered to someone else. In McKee's mind, that imbalance demanded correction. He reached Columbus before dawn on December 30th. The city felt suspended in time, streets quiet and untroubled. A thin layer of snow dusted the sidewalks and lawns, muting sound and softening edges. His breath fogged the air as he parked several blocks away from the Teep home, choosing a spot that blended in. He didn't linger in the car. He took the bag and started walking. The neighborhood looked exactly as he remembered it, only colder and emptier. The alley behind the house lay still, partially shadowed. The loose gate gave way with little resistance, just as it had weeks earlier. McKee felt a grim confirmation settle over him. Nothing had changed. At the back of the house, he paused for listening. There was no movement, no voices, only the distant hum of the city waking far away. He worked the door carefully, avoiding force, until it gave with a soft click. He stepped inside and closed it behind him. The house was warm. The smell hit him immediately, coffee lingering from the previous morning, something sweet and clean that reminded him of children's shampoo. It felt intimate in a way that made his stomach tighten. Shoes sat neatly by the door. A jacket hung from a chair. This was not just a house. It was a life. He waited holding his breath, listening for any sign of response. Nothing happened. No alarm sound was heard. No lights came on. The silence remained intact, heavy and complete, as if the house itself was unaware of the intrusion. McKee moved up the stairs one step at a time, placing his feet carefully. His shoes made no noise on the carpeted steps. The house felt hollow and still, the kind of quiet that came only after midnight. At the top of the stairs, he paused and started listening. Nothing, no voices, no movement. He reached the second-floor bedroom. The door stood half open, just as he expected. Pale moonlight slipped through the thin curtains and spread across the bed in a dull silver wash. Monique slept on the left side, turned slightly toward the window. Spencer lay on the right, flat on his back. Both of them breathed slowly, evenly, and were unaware of the upcoming attack. McKee slid the gun from his waistband and held it low at his side. He stepped closer to the bed, careful not to brush against anything. His face showed no rush, no hesitation. He fired first at Spencer. The suppressor turned the shots into soft, dull pops that barely carried beyond the room. Spencer's body reacted once, a sharp, involuntary movement, and then went still. The sheets darkened quickly beneath him. Monique stirred at the sound. Her eyes opened, confused at first, then suddenly sharp with fear as she saw the figure standing over the bed. She pushed herself upright, breath catching in her throat. Her mouth opened to scream. McKee did not wait. He turned the gun on her and fired again and again. Her arms came up instinctively, trying to shield herself. Then she fell back against the pillows, motionless. The air in the room filled with the sharp, acrid smell of gunpowder. For a moment, McKee stood there, looking down at them. His breathing remained steady. He leaned in, checking both bodies with quick, practiced movements. No movement and no breaths. He took a small cloth from his pocket and wiped the gun clean. He placed it beside the bed, exactly where it would be found. Then he straightened, turned, and walked out of the room the way he had entered. He moved down the stairs without hurry and slipped out through the back door, closing it softly behind him. The alley was dark and empty as he headed back to his car. Inside the house, the children slept in their rooms down the hall, and they were left over there undisturbed. The dog remained quiet in its crate. Nothing else appeared out of place. The house settled back into silence, as if nothing at all had happened. McKee drove west through the early morning hours, keeping his speed steady and his focus narrow. The highway stretched empty ahead of him as the sky slowly lightened. He stopped only once, at a gas station in Indiana just off the interstate. He paid in cash, kept his head pulled up, and positioned himself away from the security cameras. He did not linger, and within minutes, he was back on the road. The return trip took another 8 hours. He crossed back into Illinois by late afternoon, tired but composed. At home he showered, scrubbing himself carefully. He put his clothes into a bag, replaced them with clean ones, and disposed of the rest later. By the next morning, he followed his normal routine. He went to work. He smiled at nurses in the hallway. He reviewed patient charts, he made notes, and asked routine questions. To anyone watching, he seemed calm, professional, and unchanged. Police arrived at the Teep house earlier that morning. Spencer had failed to show up for work, and repeated calls to his phone went unanswered. A concerned coworker drove over to check on him. When no one answered the door, he looked through a bedroom window and saw blood on the bed. He stepped back and called 911. Officers entered the house and found the bodies in the upstairs bedroom. The scene was contained to that room. The children were discovered unharmed in another part of the house, still asleep. There were no obvious signs of a struggle elsewhere. Detectives initially noted the lack of forced entry. They secured the scene and began collecting evidence, including shell casings and other trace material. Investigators reviewed footage from nearby security cameras. One camera showed a figure in dark clothing walking down the alley behind the house at approximately 3 a.m. The person's height and build were consistent with McKee. Another camera captured a vehicle similar in make and color to his near the area around the same time. Attention turned quickly to the ex-husband. Friends and family told detectives that Monique had spoken openly about her marriage. She described McKee as controlling and threatening. She said he had warned her more than once that he could kill her whenever he wanted, that he could find her no matter where she went. Those statements were documented. After the divorce, Monique had worked to rebuild her life. She moved forward, focused on her children. She met Spencer, and those close to her said she seemed genuinely happy again. McKee, by contrast, stayed alone. He changed jobs, kept his distance from others, and rarely spoke about his personal life. To most people, he appeared quiet and unremarkable. To investigators, the pattern began to take shape. Police traced McKee's movements in meticulous detail. Cell phone data revealed significant gaps that night, periods when he could not be accounted for. His car had traveled the route from Illinois to Ohio and back, a round trip covering nearly 900 miles in under 20 hours. Investigators mapped the route, noting stops at remote areas and rest points. Ballistics tests soon confirmed what detectives suspected. Bullets recovered from the scene matched a gun that agents found in McKee's home during a later search. Weapons, surprisingly, had been sitting in plain view when agents arrested him in Rockford on January 10, 2026. He did not resist. He offered no explanations and spoke very little as officers read his rights. After extradition to Ohio, McKee appeared in court. He wore the standard jail orange jumpsuit. His face remained expressionless, controlled, almost unreadable. When asked to enter a plea, he stated simply of not guilty to 4 counts of aggravated murder and 1 count of aggravated burglary. Prosecutors painted a clear picture of prior calculation and design. They emphasized that the use of a suppressor demonstrated premeditation. The affidavit was detailed. Threats to Monique, weeks of stalking, the drive to Ohio, the quiet entry, the precise shots. Autopsy reports revealed the extent of the violence. Spencer had been hit 7 times, Monique even more. In total, more than 15 bullets struck the couple. The brutality was unmistakably personal, deliberate, and chilling.